Here we go. We have stopped last weekend in the sentence from Lamennais. So we are about to finish this chapter. Remember that you all are invited to participate, to help me out, to share your thoughts, your experiences, questions that you may think are not directly related to the subject, perhaps is. Even if it's not, it means that it is with you guys and you may have an opportunity to try to clarify it here anyway. Thus, spiritists, whom we may regard as advanced, have not yet been able to probe the nature of the soul. So, how could we ourselves possibly do so? It would therefore be a waste of time to scrutinize the beginning of things, which, as the Spirit's book, number 17 and 49 teaches, belongs to the secrets of God. To intend to discover through Spiritism what is still beyond the reach of humankind, in general, would be to divert it from its true objective. It would be like a child who wants to know as much as a grown-up. Well, we know that this book is almost 200 years ago, has almost 200 years, and this sentence is still very valid. Not too long ago, I was told the same thing from the spirits, that we have to follow our pace. Perhaps we want to have questions, or better, we want to have answers for everything, but it's not time yet. We don't have the maturity to have all the answers yet. So I believe we have progressed since then, but we're still a long way to go. The essential thing for humans to apply Spiritism to their moral perfection process. Anything else is mere sterile curiosity, and almost always implies pride, which is satisfied, would not enable them to advance even one step. The sole means of advancing is by morally improving ourselves. Let's talk about something here. Pride. This is a human thing, isn't it? We have pride for so many things. But should we? It depends on what we are proud of. But quite often, we are proud of things that elevate our name in society, that elevate our status around people we know, around our work environment, and things like that. We could be proud. We could be proud to work in Jesus' name. We could be proud to help people. We could be proud to improve ourselves, even though there is a limit for that pride. If we become so proud about something, perhaps we will lose the meaning of what we start with. Because we become so arrogant, we become so sure about ourselves that we lose what's most important, the true path. And it is very common among mediums that they believe they have a gift. Mediumship is not a gift. Sometimes we say it's a gift because of lack of better words. But mediumship is not a gift in the sentence of the word. Mediumship is a tool that we receive to work, to help others, and then as a consequence, help ourselves. So we need to be very careful with that thing, pride. There is one thing that came to my mind now, is there is a lot of people so proud about themselves, like I'm best speaker of the night, I'm the best I have the best knowledge about Spiritism, for example. I know that subject matter. And then pride evolves to a level that becomes dangerous because that person may become blind to themselves, blind to what is happening around, blind to change, blind to the true meaning of what she's speaking of, she or he is speaking of. So we need to be very careful with that. Hi, Munia. Good morning.
Good morning, Guilherme. Good morning, everyone. Guilherme is very interesting because, you know, at the end of the paragraph, it said that the sole means of advancement or advancing is by morally improving ourselves. And then brings into question, because it's very natural that we try to make a connection between, you know, material sciences and what the spirits have told us about the spiritual reality. But what we see from the spiritual reality is just a tiny fraction, because we have no conditions to understand it in full. But sometimes I would say, even due to pride, people jump into conclusions and start to associate what we know here and what the spirits tell us, you know, as if we could just understand everything in the spirit world based on what we know here in the material world. And I think we are far from that. But sometimes it's pride that say, well, I know so well about my physics. Why can't I understand what the spirits are telling me? Because, you know, and then they create this theory, they elaborate these connections, these explanations, and or they refuse it completely and say, no, I can't fit in what the spirits are saying into this little world I know, you know, sort of confident about. But the message is, you know, we have no conditions to understand it in full. And so why are the spirits doing here? Why did they come here and to help us to morally improve ourselves? That's why, you know, I think it's important to understand it, be humble, to understand that we can't understand things in full at this very moment. And what we should do with all this knowledge, first and foremost, is to help us to morally improve ourselves. And as we do, as we progress, then we'll be able to understand things better. But what I see many times is just people jumping into conclusions and said, oh, okay, the spirit said that, and we know this, so this is that. I am a bit careful to make this easy association between the spiritual world and here, because I see that we know very little. What they tell us is just a tiny fraction of what it is.
As you are talking, Munia, let me do something a bit different today. Let me share with you something. I need to computer first. It's coming. Let me open up here and bear with me a minute because I think it's interesting. Let me see. I just got a message about here, so let me minimize that screen. I will open it up. Open. Okay. So now I will stop share the screen. I will share something else. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
When we become too proud about ourselves, we only see our point of view. And I saw that picture this very morning. Depending on the angle you are looking, the object becomes a circle. If you are looking from another angle, the object becomes a square. This is true in our world, in our physical world. This is true in the universe. The observer will interfere in the results. This is quantum physics. It's very true. It's very true. So if I am stubborn enough just to believe that what I believe is right, that the only angle to look at something is the angle I am looking, I will only see a circle. And then I have Munir with a different experience, different life, different knowledge, and a different angle, looking to the same object. And he can see a square. If we both are very stubborn, we are both wrong and both right at the same time. But then, if I have Cherry, that's a very curious person, she's minding well, and she believes we both are right, and she decides to walk from me to Munir, observing the same subject, the object. She will be able to see the square, something else in between, because as she moves, she will see a different reflex, and she will see what Munir sees. So why I'm saying that? Spiritism is not the last word, was not the first one. Spiritism is here to open our minds, to listen to the spirits, to what they have to teach us. But everything the spirits teach us is be flexible, pay attention, study, listen to others, ask people with more experience so you can compare your thoughts. Let's be very careful when we decide to say that something is that, and that is the truth, because we may be very wrong. And when we see people, following what Munir said, that when we see people really believing that what he or she believes, only that is true, we have a problem. We have a problem because we become blind. We become blind to ourselves. And then we may lose a great opportunity to learn something different, to learn together. And then who is losing something? We are losing something, right? I've seen many principles advocated by spiritists, and they were never willing to consider other aspects also from the spiritism. So they stagnated in that part, in that moment in time. And the spiritism, as Kardec said, will evolve, is an evolving philosophy. So we should allow ourselves to also evolve with the spiritism. Can you see my book again? Yeah?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Funny, I saw that picture this morning and I saved it in my cell phone. I said, well, one day I will use that. I was not expecting that would be today. The spirits who dictated the book that bears their name have proven their own wisdom by respecting the limits that God will not allow them to exceed concerning the beginning of things, leaving to theorizing and presumptuous spirits the responsibility of premature and erroneous hypotheses. We are all very good in that little sentence here, become premature and erroneous hypotheses. It is very natural to the human being to create hypotheses, theories about everything. But we have to remember that any theory that we, as individual or as a group, we may come up with may be limited to what this group environment, to what we know, to what we believe, to what we can see. Perhaps another group will have an entirely different perspective of the very same subject. So it's very positive to create hypotheses, theories, but let's not keep them cast in stone, because that is what happened to the Bible, is what happened to so many philosophies from the past. They do not change. And then science has come and proven that few things they advocate could not be. So we need to remember, we have to be flexible. We have to be flexible for our own sake, for our own benefit. When I'm saying that, people may think, what is he telling? Is he telling me not to rely on the Spiritism? No, that's not what I'm saying. Even on the Spiritism, one chapter can be interpreted in so many different ways. And perhaps the way you did may not be the best one. Perhaps the way you did may be incomplete. Perhaps you'll be entirely wrong. Because sometimes we want to see what we want to see. Sometimes we want to understand as per our will. And the problem lies where I start to advocate things as I want them to be, and I create followers. So I'm teaching something that's not right. Someone is learning something that's not right. And that could be extending for years, centuries, until someone starts to read that very same text again. Hold on, there's a different comma here. With this comma, the interpretation is a bit different. And then you may flip entirely the conception of the text.
Gil, Christine here from Australia.
Hi, Christine, how are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Not bad.
That's good. I just wanted to say that I was watching a show the other night and they were talking about different interpretations of the Bible, and they were saying that people, those who originally wrote the Bible, it was interpreted by people in their way, and they interpreted the interpretation, and so it goes on. So how do we know what is true and what is not? Sorry, I'm just a bit late in, but I just wanted to throw that in there to ask, because just from what you've been saying, with Alan Kardec, his interpretation of what's been said in the Bible in the Gospel has been helped along by the spirits, helping him with that interpretation. Is that correct? Would I be correct in saying that?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. So the Gospel, according to the Spiritism, is the interpretation of the Gospel, is an extract of the Bible, right? According to the visions, to the knowledge of the spirits, right? Let me try not to get into a fight with people that love the Bible here. Let me use the Spiritism as a reference to that I believe will answer the question as well. The book was received how? Kardec had mediums in every corner of France, of Europe, even abroad, getting messages and sending to him. He compiled the information, all the information that made sense, and everything was in French. He compiled everything in French. Not necessarily all the messages were in French. So we could have interference on the message he received if we were considering only one. That's why he cross-checked several answers from several mediums. So he eliminated that possibility, or at least he reduced a lot that possibility. And he compiled everything in French. Let's assume that the publication had no interference from the editors, right? Because it may happen as well, right? So let's say that the book is really what meant to be. And then someone decided to translate that to English. We may have some words with different meanings than what meant in the original already. And then someone came, saw the English version because he or she could not understand the French one, and decided to translate to Portuguese, a third language. Some of the words may have changed the meaning again. And that can happen again and again and again. At early ages, when the Bible were compiled, they had the same risks and eventually the same process. Not all the same through the spirits or compiling from different spirits, but someone wrote a document, and from there, everyone else copied, translated, changed, added, reduced. Who knows? In this moment in history, we cannot guarantee that the Bible as it is was exactly the same as it was written. I cannot. The Spiritism advocates that we must use reason. Why is that? That is to prevent us to fall into something that has been misinterpreted or misguided. So if you find something in the Spiritism, in Kardec's book, for example, that your spider senses, like Spider-Man, start to tingle. Hold on. Let me read that again. Let me read that again. It doesn't make sense. Let me talk to people. Let me investigate it. Let me go to the real source of it. Let me compare with originals. When you practice your common sense and reason, then you minimize the possibility of me misguided by any information. You may not eliminate it, all of it, but you will reduce. So what is true, what is not? Then I'm going to that picture. Depending from your point of view, your knowledge, your expectations, because your expectations will change the way you see things. So the truth is only one, God. Anything else could be closer to the truth, could be a truth in evolution, because what is true today may not be true tomorrow, because we will learn more, we will add more value into what we know. So the only thing that I can guarantee is true is God, because he's the one, you know. Other than that, everything is changing and evolving. Who would believe that we could find water in the space 2 years ago? A couple weeks, James Webb was able to identify water in the space in a very far distant planet. And most of us, we still believe the whole universe is only for us. But one day, that will change. One day, the evidences will be so loud that if we go against it, people may be fan of us.
Guilherme, I would like to add as well one aspect when you said about translation and interpretation, because we have also to understand that when people write things, they write things at one particular time using symbols and the elements of the culture that they lived. So these are things that we also have to think about, not only in the word itself, but all of these, the way the language together were used at that time. In Kardec's time, And we mentioned in the Bible's times, the use of symbolisms, analogies, and parables, and lots of things that people take as a literal knowledge that is there as a symbolic knowledge for us to be able to understand what the bigger message is. So again, when we get to books and contents like this, it is not wise just to get a quick reading. We need to really slowly digest, come out of it, research a few things to understand, and then trying to create an idea of what we understand about it, and yet keep the mind open for whatever comes. Because in my experience, like, I start reading Kardec more than 10 years ago, and then I get the book again today, and then I'm like, oh, right, so that is it. So throughout the years, we are going to gain more and more understanding of the things with our life experiences, with understanding and changes in our own culture. So it is a long process.
Just to add to what you just said, Liz, as we morally improve ourselves, it's like a video game. You change phases. As I improve myself, I can reach a different level of perception and information. The information is there from the beginning. But as I improve morally, I'm able to reach better what that information is bringing to us. I can use André Luiz as an example. A lot of people just read as it is a romance. A lot of people who read thinking that it's something a bit more complicated than that. And there are people that also believe that's a scientific book because it's bringing so much knowledge about so enormous amount of subject that reinforce what I said. Different people, different stage of life, different capacity to read what is written. Hi, Munir.
Hi, Guilherme. Just adding to what Liz said, there's a scholar in the United States. He works with a version of the Bible that was translated directly from the Aramaic. There's a village in the Near East, and there's a small community that for centuries they kept a version of the Bible that was in Aramaic. So he translated, and he found one of the major problems were idiomatic expressions that they used at the time. That if you translate like, oh, hell broke loose, if the meaning changes in the future, people will say, wow, they opened the doors of hell, and, you know, this kind of thing, you know. And he said there are around 4,000 mistranslations, problem with translations, because they couldn't understand the real meaning of the word. But what's important is the general message. As I said, if I read the message and it doesn't make sense, let me read the rest as well. You know? And so the importance of not just basing everything in one message, in one piece of information, but actually making, using common sense and making something out of that. And it's the same with the gospel, where there are some passages that, well, Jesus behaved like that. Wow, it's weird. And then, you know, but the rest of the time he preached and he exemplified a completely different behavior. So it doesn't make sense, you know. Say, well, with one or two odd passages in the whole context, they don't make sense at all. That's how we should sort of, you know, grasp what the message is, and the details we leave aside. They will be clarified, you know, one day or another.
Let's thinking about, I think what Munir said is great, really. Let's thinking about 2,000 years ago. This group here have been tasked to write the Bible. Every one of us here, we have different skills, different knowledge, different understand how to use the words. How many people are here today? We would have 17 different Bibles. And then I would come to you all, because I'm coordinating the Bible edition, the first Bible edition. Hey, that's not good. You need to make something more bright, because we are trying to build a structure from that book, right? We don't know yet what to do, perhaps a congregation or a church or who knows, but it's not good enough. Put some color in what you guys just wrote here, right? Once again, we would have another 17 different books with different colors, different allegories to say the same thing. And then I will come to you again. That's way better, guys, but we need to make money of it. We need to control politicians. We need to control history. We need to control anything you may think. And then from that version, things start to deviate, because I was not giving you a clear line. We need to control this. I gave you very open spectrum. So Munir wants to control the city. Yasmin wants to control Japan. Cherry wants to control UK. And things start to deviate. So once again, if we do work with reason, with common sense, we will start to identify those little things that could be written for different reasons to achieve different meanings. And I'm using the Bible because for some reason we spoke about the Bible, but anything could be like that. Anything in this world, even the Spiritism. There are books and books. There are translations and translations. And even people that go to make a lecture, you can find tons of lectures on the internet today. There are some we agree, some we don't agree, some we agree partially, some that we don't know from where it's coming from, some that get our attention, despite that we don't fully appreciate, we see a potential to develop that to something else. So this is not true. This is not true. So it's down to us, on the end, to evaluate everything. And I think I mentioned here once already. If you see anything written in the Bible, on the Gospel, in Kardec's book, anywhere, that will prevent you to do charity, this is going against what Jesus taught us. If we are in doubt about anything we are reading, make yourself a question. Am I helping myself or anyone with that interpretation? If the answer is yes, it's positive already. If the answer is no, investigate a bit more until you find the proper answer. But back to the Spiritism, if you see anyone wearing a t-shirt from the Spiritism telling you to do something or preventing you to do charity, means that this particular person may have not fully understood what the Spiritism is. And if at any moment in time, through the Spiritism, books or lectures or whatever, you feel like it's not enough, or it's telling me not to help, or it's creating so many difficulties to help, stick with Jesus. Ask yourself what he would do in that case. Then you are minimizing your possibilities of errors. I'm talking too much today. So let's continue here.
Sorry.
Go on.
No, just to, it is a very rich point, to be honest, and everyone have made some very good points around everything. So I have just a little to add. It always comes to me, the example that you have done of us trying to write things is good, because often when I try to express something that I need to express, the words betray me. And it is often that we see in the spirits as well, that the spirits mention that our language is limited. And actually it is, isn't it? So it's so easy to use the wrong words, or so it in a sense it is expected. We are human beings, we are not perfect, and we as translators, as storytellers, we're gonna make mistakes. But the most interesting thing from what I gather from what you mentioned and Munir have mentioned as well is the example. The example speaks louder than words. And yeah, that's my kind of contribution.
Very good, Daniel. Very good. So let's continue from the premature Aeronio hypothesis where I stopped, and then which are more fascinating than serious, and which someday will fall before the impact of reason, like so many others that have arisen from the human mind. So if we are basing our beliefs in something that is not reason, that's not fact, eventually that will fall. They have only stated what is truly necessary so that men and women may comprehend the future that awaits them and thus be encouraged to practice goodness. Here we go. This is what we should do in any situation. In any situation. And we have a very hard time to do so. But that is the magic formula. That's the magic wand to fix our problems, to prevent our diseases, to help us to evolve. This is the magic wand that so many people come asking. Sometimes they knock on the Spirit Center asking for the magic wand. And when we show them the magic wand, that's not what they are looking for. So we are starting now part 2. We still have time. So go one by one. Well, there's so many things. So we move on and we start on this one. Chapter 1 of part 2, the action of spirits upon matter. Is that possible? Right? That would be the first question that comes to my mind when I read that title. Is that possible? So I will not give you any spoiler alert. So we go through the steps, and then on the end of this chapter, I would like you to make the very same questions to you again. Is that possible? Remember that. Is that possible? Item 52. Now that we have rejected the materialist theory because it is condemned both by reason and facts, and then I stop here. Are you guys convinced that the materialist theory is no longer valid anymore? Or you still have some doubt about it? Because if you do, I would like to talk about it before we move on. Perhaps I'm missing something. Are you all okay that, do you all accept that the materialist theory has lost power at that stage?
Oh, yes.
I will take that yes, as everyone's saying yes, and I can see
Yes.
Liz with the thing. I can see.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
Gil, it's
Sandra,
Christine again.
Sandra, yeah, good, very good. We
Gil,
must now
it's Christine.
determine. Yeah, go on, Christine.
Sorry. Yes.
Good stuff. But you want to say something more? Don't be shy.
I do. I'm not shy. I'm never shy. Sorry. I'm not as experienced because I haven't been with the group as long as some others in the group. And I've been watching a few of the podcasts that that have been on the internet with Munir and yourself, and I think Daniel, and Charles. and with Elsa as well. And I've listened, and I have realized that when people talk about materialists, basically it comes down to one thing, that when we come into this world, we come in with nothing except the spirit that we are. And when we leave this world, we go with nothing except the the spiritual being that we are. So to say that, I believe I've rejected this materialist theory. Would that be correct?
Yeah, it's correct. But saying that, I prefer a materialistic person that do lots of charity, a lot of good things to others, than someone that's call themselves a spiritualist and do nothing. Because the materialist will arrive on the other end and will have a shock of information, shock of reality, because when he dies, he will go with every single process that we all do. But he will be better received on the other end than spiritualist people that do nothing, just use the pride, as we start today, or they will arrive over there and in worse conditions than materialist people that have a good heart and help people. We must now determine whether or not the soul after death can manifest itself to the living. Thus, reduced to its simplest expression, the issue becomes very easy to address. First, we must ask why the intelligent beings who, to some extent, live among us, although invisible by nature, could not somehow make their presence felt in some manner. Common sense tells us that there is nothing completely impossible about the idea, which in itself is at least something to start with. Moreover, this belief has the acceptance of all cultures in its favor because we find that it has been held anywhere in all ages. In addition, an intuitive idea could not have become so widespread or have survived down through time without having some reason behind it. It is also sanctioned by the testimony of scriptures and the church fathers. And it took the skepticism and materialism of our own century to relegate it to the area of superstitious ideas. Therefore, we are in error. Those authorities are equally so. Hi, Sandra. Your mic's closed.
Sorry, I have a question here. Church fathers?
I believe he is referring to the priests, because a lot of they used to be called fathers. That's the way I see, or at least those that are in the top organization of the church. And I bet not all of us here in this room had the opportunity to encounter, to have been exposed to the spirits itself. So how can we believe them? How can we trust they exist? But Yasmin, please open your mic and talk. Now I have to read what you wrote. Yasmin wrote to us, you can find an example of what Guilherme just said about spiritualist people who haven't studied enough or incarnated in the spirit's world in the third and fourth books of André Luiz. Yeah, that's very true. We also have one here for Sandra. Chapter 1 of the Gospel explains that the Gospel, has moved. Gospel used Sassy's French translation. rather than the King James, exactly what we have discussed here. Yeah. The church father, early church fathers, Christian fathers or fathers of church, were ancient and influential Christian theologians and writers who established an intellectual and doctrinal foundations of Christianity. Very good. I think that was Elsa who said. We must actually.
Sorry, it's Christine again. Just on that section where it says, it took the skepticism and materialism of our own century to relegate it to the area of superstitious ideas. Is that, in other words, saying that it's considered mysticism?
Yes. Let's go to the 1800s, right? When the book was written. Before that time, even the Catholic Church, they were accepting spirits and things like that. One time in age, it has changed. One time in age, because we became so clever and so we built structures like Sorbonne and the other universities, we became more materialist. And at that moment, then we start to deny things we believed initially. And as we could not say they exist or not, because it cannot be proven otherwise, then we said, yeah, it's mysticism, is any other word just to relegate that knowledge to the corner. Harmonia.
Guilherme, I just want to add that, you know, a typical behavior of materialists is at some point, someone went open a human body and said, I couldn't find the soul there. So you're wrong. The soul doesn't exist. So the little they knew about the physical body for them was everything. And they couldn't accept there was something beyond that just because it wasn't in that little world, that little realm, you know. We know, we talk about perispirit, but someone could come and say, well, I've made so many surgeries, never found the perispirits inside the body, you know. So that's why I don't believe. And so there's a narrow way of thinking and seeing things.
I think it's fair to say that if we are in a situation that, let's say myself and Munir, we disagree in one point. Munir is saying that something is yes, I'm saying something is no. He cannot prove his yes, I cannot prove my no. So we are facing a dilemma because none of us can prove what we believe. So eventually, one day, perhaps he will be able to prove his point of view, and I may be able to prove mine, but right now we cannot. So in that situation, the best I could say is give the benefit of doubt. If you don't know, go left or right, give the benefit of the doubt, study about the subject, try to learn the matter, and then eventually you will be able to go to one side and to other, but never deny something straight away, never. And you possibly saw me here already saying, well, the Spiritism does not advocate that, the Spiritism say that, but I would not, normally, I police myself not to say that this does not exist or this is wrong, because I don't know what is right, I don't know what is wrong. I know what I studied, I know what I lived through practice, but is that all? I don't know. Perhaps tomorrow my perception will change, and instead of being only on the left, I start to migrate a little bit for the right. Who knows? So we need to keep our mind open. What time is it? 10 minutes, enough to go. But these are only philosophical considerations. One cause above all others has contributed to fortifying doubt in an era that is as positive as ours, in which everyone needs to know everything. It seems like today, isn't it? Everyone needs to know everything to the Google, internet, blah, blah, blah. And in which everyone wants to know the why and how of all things. That cause is ignorance concerning the nature of spirits and of the means through which they are able to manifest themselves. Once this understanding is acquired, the effect of such manifestation presents nothing surprising and falls into line with the order of natural events. Any spiritist or spirits, it's better use spirits as words, because spirits phenomena happens everywhere, in every creed, in every corner of the globe. The spiritist phenomena is more specific to the spiritism, but those phenomena we see on the spiritism, they happen everywhere. They may be given different names, different explanations, but it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. So when the knowledge become popular, become freely discussed among the humans, so there's no surprise anymore. As we spoke about water in another planet here today, if we were talking about that 50 years ago, we would not go anywhere at all. We would be criticized. If we were scientists, they would say we were totally crazy. They would say we were out of our mind. If we had good jobs in good universities, we probably had to apply for a job somewhere else. 50 years ago. Now, the top scientists in the world, they come up with a machine that is telling us that. Who, in this present moment in time, in era, is able to tell that this machine is now wrong? It's becoming harder and harder to argue against things when we start to see proof of it. It's like we all here. I'm pretty sure not all of us here participate in mediumship meetings. Not all of us here have contact with spirits. Not all of us here can hear, see, or talk with the spirits. But by the time we do, if we have a disagreement, we have no anchor for our disagreement anymore, because we've been exposed to the very same knowledge, to the very same experience. So that's basically what he's saying here. 53, yeah, let's start 53. The idea that people normally have about spirits make the phenomenon of a spirit's manifestation seem incomprehensible at first. Such a phenomenon cannot occur without the action of a spirit upon matter. And that is I will highlight. And that is why those who regard the spirits as completely lacking in matter asks, with apparently good reason, how they can act physically upon it. I will stop here. What time is it? We may have to talk more about that next week, but anyway, let me start here. When one spirit communicates through a medium, through writing or talking, he is manipulating the matter of the medium. So, is the first point of arguing if spirits can interact with matter or not. Yes, they can. They are interacting with matter. If we go for a little bit further, the spirits, they can, through some particular type of mediums interact with the direct matter, like what we had in Kardec's time. How would a table turn? How would a table talk? That was the way they did. They interact with matter. There are sciences where the spirits, they materialize themselves. This is very specific. But how they do that? Manipulating energies and matter. Matter from the medium, matter from the environment. So I have no quarrel with that. Spirits, they can interact with matter. But then, as our time goes by here today, we'll finish with Munir. And Munir, can you do the final prayer as it is? After your talk?
Yes, I can. Yeah. No, I just want to add, because in Coffee Break with Kardec, that we have every Wednesday, last Wednesday, I've mentioned that even psychic phenomena, it happens due to interaction of perispirit to perispirit and fluidic action. And this is matter. So, it's just something that happens on a different level. As you said, there are the phenomena where the spirit acts directly on hard matter, on gross matter. But in the cases of mediumship, there is an action, a material action between the medium spirit, the perispirits of that spirit giving communication, exchange of fluidic of fluids between them. So it is a material phenomenon.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, let's do our final prayer then.